Just waiting for Councillor Washington.
Right here.
Here, excellent. Good to know.
I know I'm quiet, but holy wow.
I couldn't see you. I've got my chat function on. I've blocked your visual. Sorry.
That's okay.
All right, my son got his second shot. He said, you know what he says it feels like? It feels like his bones are feeling weird. And it's like, you know, your flu-like symptoms, like they said it would happen. So just so everybody knows that, he has his second, hopefully, vaccine for this COVID.
Okay, it seems like it's 2 p.m. now. I'll be filling in for Mayor Minions today. So we'll call our regular meeting of council to order, January 11th, 2021. And before we begin, we'll recognize that we're conducting our meeting on the unceded traditional territories of the Huipachesset and Sachot First Nations. Are there any late items identified by councillors? Councillor Washington?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Under new business, is it okay to request that we get an update report on the submission of the application for the Agricultural Land Commission to have McLean Mill Historic Site removed from the ALR, please?
Yes, Director of Corporate Services, how shall we insert this into the agenda?
Yes, we can amend the agenda to capture that under unfinished business, since it is something that's being entertained by council at this point. So E1.
Okay, shall we approve the agenda then?
So moved.
Second, Madam Mayor.
All in favor? Okay, any late items identified by the corporate officer?
No, nothing. Acting Mayor Poon.
Okay, and just to note that this meeting is being recorded and is streamed online on YouTube. So yeah, okay, we've approved the agenda. So let's go to adoption of minutes.
Move to adopt.
Second, Madam Mayor.
Moved and seconded. All in favor? Carried. All right, we'll move on to public input period. Director of Corporate Services, has there been any public input?
No public input submitted.
Okay, we'll move on to delegations then. And CAO, a introduction of the Director of Engineering.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Council, as you know, the city has been conducting an executive search for some time, looking for our next Director of Engineering and Public Works. And I'm really excited to be able to introduce him to you today. Before I do that, I just want to acknowledge that we've been in transition in the director role for a period of time, longer than we would have liked. And during that transition time, our staff at engineering and public works in particular, but also citywide, have been picking up the slack, and certainly engineering and public works have not had the support that we want them to have. And so I want to acknowledge them right now as for having worked through that and thank them for that. I'd also want to thank directly Ken Watson and Will Takama, both of whom have been trying to retire from public service and have been helping us keep the lights on while we conducted the executive search to find the right next director. And that right next director is a gentleman by the name of Rob Dickinson. Rob has worked previously in the public sector and private sector in BC, Alberta, and Saskatchewan. Very interestingly, he's also done a stint as a NATO peacekeeper as a lead civil engineer in Bosnia. Rob is a proven communicator and collaborator. He has a keen interest as well in working on projects that minimize impacts to the environment, which I think all of those things together make him the right person to lead our engineering and public works department through the next phase of our community development. So I'm really excited to introduce to you Rob Dickinson, and I think Rob might have a few words to say in his own introduction, and I encourage you to ask him a few questions. Rob.
Thank you, Tim. Honestly, that was an amazing introduction. I don't know if I can add to that. Anything I say will probably take away from that. Thank you very much. That was excellent. And if anything, I'd like to chime in as well with the staff, existing staff, as well as some semi-retired staff who've been carrying all that slack, because it's really been a soft parachute in, whereas I'm used to getting in the position and day one, it's putting out fires immediately, where this has been a really nice transition. And I'm really excited to be here and be working for this organization in the community. And I've been already out on the ocean in the mountains. I'm having fun already here, and I've only been here a week. So I look forward to working with you all in the future.
Well, we're really excited to have you. Council, any comments, questions? Councillor Haggard and then Councillor Paulson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to welcome you up to Port Alberni, and I'm sorry you have to come here when we've had monsoon-like weather, but honestly, in a couple of months, you'll think you've died and gone to heaven. You'll love it. And also, I was wondering if the CEO could extend our congratulations to our retiring engineer and director of public works, to Wilf and Ken, and how much we've appreciated their long-term services and for stepping up when we needed them during this time. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, you want me to go?
Yes, please.
Rob, first of all, I would just really like to welcome you to our community and to have a young, dynamic individual. I gather you have family. Welcome to our community. And during this COVID time, my wife and I are entrenched in watching the Netflix series Homeland, which I believe was filmed not too far from Okotoks. So we'll be looking for your face as an extra in there.
Any other comments from councillors? Councillor Solda?
Welcome to Port Alberni. Looking forward to meeting you in person instead of Zoom, because I hate Zoom. And welcome to our winter. This is our snow. It lasts one day if we do get snow, and then it rains. So welcome. Thank you.
Well, I just wanted to say welcome to the community, and we're really excited to have you. And I know we've been working through some asset management plans. I'd love to ask you, what are your experiences with asset management plans, and how do you think you can help us here?
I love that question. Asset management is a very keen interest of mine. I've taken it from an organization that had nothing all the way to getting an asset management plan done in place and then implementing it for several years, to several times starting an asset management plan and implementing it. So I've a fair bit of experience, both with the cultural change in an organization with asset management plans, as well as the challenges you have with finding money or changing your service levels because you realize long-term you can't afford service levels that you currently provide for something. So I really look forward to that. And I already see the team here has been bringing that along quite well the last year or two.
Great. Thanks for joining the team. And we look forward to having your skills shine here. Thank you. Okay, moving on to our next delegation, Dave Beecroft from the Alberni Valley Drag Racing Association.
We are just looking at getting Mr. Beecroft on board. He is here. He's just connecting. We're just getting him to unmute.
All right, we're slow here.
Okay, welcome, Mr. Beecroft. I understand you're here to provide an overview of the Thunder in the Valley event for 2021.
I am.
Please go ahead.
Okay, so I just to say that I'm Dave Beecroft and I'm the acting president. Our president is away right now for work. I just want to thank everyone for letting us talk today. This is going to be two parts. The first part saying that we still hope to race on Stamp Avenue as long as everything goes good. Can you still hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
I just showed it didn't. So we're still planning to race on Stamp as we've been working with Community Futures to, so if it's a COVID race, we've got virtual, all the stuff we got to do to make the race go on as a plan, so we can still work with that and do our fundraising at that. Our second part is we're working with Community Futures, Lori and Tara Christensen. We've applied for several government grants and we find out in 2 weeks, we've applied for enough money to build the whole racetrack on Industrial Road. So yeah, we would just have to work with the city, but there is enough funding to cover the cost of the track. So it wouldn't be anything to the city other than the land. Again, we'd have to work with the city on that, but we should hear about that in 2 weeks. So we're waiting on that. Our third thing is if we don't get the grant, we'd still like to work with the city on Industrial Road. We've talked with Shari and Tim about racing down there and building a track and us putting money into it every race. We discussed that we could go up to about $20,000 per race, as well as to do a bunch of fundraising as well. That we'd have to sit down and go over everything and start working a plan to that. And obviously we wouldn't be able to pull it off this year, but we could definitely look at it for trying to do it for next year. We're really in a spot now where we're trying to do whatever we can to try and get a permanent home and to work with you guys. I mean, you guys have been really good to work with so far. So, and we want to go that in the future. So we're just looking for a permanent track so we can have a home. Is there any questions or anything or?
Thank you. Councillor Corbeil and then Haggard and Washington.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Beecroft, for your presentation. Just a question, when you talk about a permanent home, are you looking for a quarter-mile track or 1/8 of a mile track? How long is the track?
Industrial Road is would be an 8-mile track, but you know what, if we had to leave it as an 8-mile track, the bigger cars could still run there. There's enough room to make it so that we could run the quicker cars there. So that would be, I mean, all the big places where you drag race are getting shorter and shorter and shorter. You're not running full quarter miles anywhere. I mean, other than for the smaller cars anyways.
Okay, Councillor Haggard.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Dave, I just want to wish you good luck on getting, being successful in getting any grant funding available to you.
Yeah,
I'll keep my fingers and toes crossed for you. I think we all know how important this event is to the community and the economic driver that it is for us. So good luck, and let's hope and let's make it happen. Thank you.
sounds great. Thanks very much.
Councillor Washington?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Dave, just for the people watching, when you say industrial road, where exactly is that?
Right across from Jack's Tire, basically on the road going from the stone mass to the weigh scales at Paper Excellence.
So that would be Harbor, I guess Harbor Road is what they
Oh,
call
Harbor
it.
Road, sorry.
Okay, thank you. No, I just wanted to make sure that
Yeah, no.
the folks were in the same, watching the same thing you were.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Yeah, I'm really not used to this, but I'm working on it.
Best of luck this year.
All right, thank you very much.
Okay, Councillor Paulson?
Thanks for the presentation, Dave. It's great to hear that the event, with all things being equal, will be back next year. Will you be coming back to council for formal approval and stuff, maybe with some dollar figures and stuff in the next month or two?
Yes, we'd like to be at the next meeting. We should hear in the next 2 weeks if we get any of this grant money. So we are going ahead with that we're going to race it, stamping that in mind, and then everything else, we're just going to wait and see how it goes.
I'd be more than happy to entertain a motion to support the event at that time, Dave. So looking forward to that follow-up. That'd be fabulous.
Yeah, no, we're working out. We've been working hard at this, trying to get it all, so we're ready to go. I mean, we haven't gone away. We want to be here. We got so much support, and everyone's always asking us what we're doing, and then we're trying. We just don't want to say too much, and then all of a sudden it just opens another can of worms. We're trying to work with you guys first and get it done.
Well, we're really happy that you're working hard to make this event a success. Yeah, we hope to hear more about it in the near future.
Okay, sounds great. Soon as we know more, we'll get in touch with and carry on with what we're doing.
Excellent.
Thank you very much.
All right, let's move on to unfinished business. E1, the McLean Mill ALC application. Director of Corporate Services.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Poon. So just to update council, you will recall, since council authorized the city to apply for the exclusion application and engage third-party resources, the city has gone ahead and done that. We have secured work from an agrologist as well as another third party to assist us facilitate the public hearing, which is a requirement of the ALC when submitting our application. So we're moving ahead, and work will be commencing the third week of January to actually starting hands-on and working on our application.
So, Councillor Solda has a question.
Well, it's related to McLean's Mill. Do we have a cost, a total cost yet of the oil spill, or is that still ongoing?
Director of Corporate Services.
If I may, I think our CIO, Tim Ply, would like to answer that question.
Okay, CIO.
Speak to that.
Mayor, we don't have a final cost on that yet. We think that the end of spill report will be coming out very shortly, and we'll circulate that publicly. And as soon as we've documented all the costs, we'll bring that to your next council meeting.
Madam Mayor, may I also ask about our CIO about the propane tanks? What are we doing with those?
I'm not sure what the question is, Madam Mayor.
I thought we had propane tanks on the site too, some kind of tanks.
Yes.
Are we keeping, do they stay there or are they being moved?
Yeah, no, they're in use. They supply the buildings that are heated, and they supply the mill, the boiler.
Okay. Just double checking. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Corbeil.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Question, we're going to talk about McLean's Mill. What's the status of our correspondence regarding the federal government trying to help us better manage or better finance that mill site?
CAO.
Viola can respond to that. Director of Corporate Services, please.
Okay.
Sure. So certainly just a quick update. We had communication from representation from Federal Heritage, and they are doing some background work. And then once we hear from that individual, we will be formalizing our correspondence and hopefully securing a meeting with Heritage Parks representation and the minister.
Okay.
Madam Mayor,
Okay.
I'll also add to that, the mayor met last week with our member of parliament who wanted to offer to be involved before we send off any letters. He suggested that he be involved in our approach to the federal government.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councillor Washington?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a question, I don't know if anybody can answer, but is it still business as usual out at the mill, like the gift shop, and you can still walk around, or is this application thing handcuffed us out at the mill?
Madam Mayor, the Agricultural Land Commission it knows that we're making an application and is holding back any enforcement, as they did last year, pending our application. So it's business as usual.
Councillor Solda? You're on mute, Councillor Solda.
Sorry about that. So if we're going as business as usual at McLean's Mill, are we taking any more bookings like for weddings and that? I don't know if that's a wise thing to do until we get the okay, because I don't think it's a smart move at this time. I know there's weddings that have been booked, and so be it. But going forward on that until we hear from the ALR, I don't know. I don't know if that's a smart move.
Thank you. Councillor Haggard?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I am the city representative on the chamber board, and as you know, the Chamber of Commerce is the operator for McLean Mill. They are not taking any bookings at this time because, well, number one, because of COVID, they can't take any bookings, and they're waiting to see what the outcome of this is. There has been no bookings.
Thank you
Thanks
for
for the
that.
clarification. All right. Director of Corporate Services, do we need a motion to receive this update?
No motion is required. Thank you.
Okay, and then, so are we ready to move on? Okay. Let's move on to staff reports. And number one is accounts. Councillor Washington.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move that the certification of the Director of Finance dated January 11, 2021 be received, and checks numbering 147704 to 147867 inclusive, and payments of accounts totaling $3,277,254.22 be approved.
Moved and seconded. All in favor? Carried. Second item, Manager of Community Safety for 3118 3rd Avenue.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The report before Council today is to provide a status update regarding the work that has been carried out at 3118 3rd Avenue in relation to Council's remedial action order. On September 14th, Council resolved remedial action requirements for 3118 3rd Avenue. On October 14th, Council extended the time for the property owner to address the requirement by an additional 30 days. On November 23rd, Council resolved that in the absence of progress being made, that Council return to an in-camera meeting to consider Council's next steps in addressing the property. On December 14th, staff provided an updated report providing information on the progress and actions that were taking place at 3118 3rd Avenue. Council directed staff to refrain from additional enforcement as long as significant and appropriate progress continued. At the time of this report, there were some minor outstanding items, and I can report today that all the requirements have been met and the property at 3118 3rd Avenue is now in compliance. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Well, thank you for that report. We have questions from Councillor Paulson.
Thank you for the report. I think it's a very encouraging news for that property. Just as a thought, I'm wondering if we could, for the next couple of months, receive just update reports on that property as a matter of due course in council. I don't know if I need to make a motion on this or not, but I want to make sure over the next short while that there's no backsliding on that property, just to make sure that they achieve a level and maintain that level. And I know that pretty well all the items are checked off, but I'd really like to keep an eye on it. This is the second or third time we've gone through this with this property, and I'd like to make sure that the property is being maintained to a standard going forward. So I don't know if that makes sense, council, or not.
Thank you. Any other comments from councillors? Councillor Solda?
I agree with Councillor Paulson. I just have a question. Don't we have a motion somewhere that we were just going to follow up monthly or something like that? Or isn't there a, I thought there was. Can that be clarified?
Madam
Maybe-
Mayor, I'm not aware of anything, but
Oh.
I know that we did talk about that for the Port Pub, that we were going to check up with them in 6 months, so we could do the same thing here as well.
Madam Mayor, do we need a motion on that, or is that just going to happen?
The motion here is to receive the report first.
So
Councillor Bill?
Just a question to the manager of community safety. Do we know, is there on-site management of this facility? Somebody's living there to manage it?
Thank you. Good question. There is no one living on site at the moment. There are managers managing the building that live here in town. They do plan on converting this one of the suites for that type of service, but they haven't engaged. They haven't done that yet.
Okay.
Any idea of the timeline?
I'm sorry, no, we don't have that timeline.
Okay. Sorry to cut you off there, Councillor Solda.
No, that's
Please go.
fine. My question is regarding having a look in that. How many times do we enter a building? Is it just for a yearly inspection? Or is it on, I know it's complaint driven too, but is it yearly inspection, or how does it work? Maybe we can get a clarity on that.
Madam Mayor, I would,
Go ahead.
the different departments have different timelines for inspections. Fire would go in at different times. Building inspector would go in if there was renovations being done. So we don't have any planned inspections of the building. And you're right, it is complaint driven. So sometimes we will go in because of a number of complaints. But right now we don't have a timeline that we would go in and just to inspect.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Paulson?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to make a motion that we have a follow-up report in 6 months, just an update report if we could.
I'll second that.
Any comments on the motion? Okay, all in favor? Carried. Can we get a motion to receive the report for information as well?
So moved, Madam Mayor.
Moved and seconded. All in favor? Carried. Okay, the next item is the 3629, 3633, and 3655 4th Avenue, and a report from the manager of community safety. Please go ahead.
Director Corporate Services, do we have anybody speaking?
Yes, we do. We do have Randy Brown, and we're just making the connection.
Mr. Brown, are you connected to the audio now? Director of Corporate Services, is there anything you can do to help Mr. Brown get connected?
He is showing visually. It's just obviously an issue with audio. We are working with him right now, just behind the scenes. Just give us a minute, and if not, we'll suggest we move on in the agenda and come back to Mr. Brown.
All right. We'll give it a minute then. Director of Corporate Services, shall we move on and return to this item later? All right, I think it's safe to say we should move on to the next item and return when Mr. Brown is connected. Item number 4, Manager of Community Safety, 2808 10th Avenue, update.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This report before council today is to provide information regarding the property at 2808 10th Avenue. On March 11th, 2019, council, due to the significant non-emergency calls being received by RCMP, Fire Department, Building and Bylaws Services, designated this property as a nuisance. The property was sold in September of 2019, where extensive repairs, restorations, and renovations were undertaken. The property exchanged hands again in July of 2020. Since the initial sale in 2019, there have been no calls for service. Council is being asked to rescind the motion designated the subject property as a nuisance, thereby removing the subject property from the city's nuisance property listing. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Excuse me,
Thank
Madam
you.
Mayor.
Councillor Solda?
I was out of the room for this because I knew the previous owner. Am I still in conflict, or do I stay, or how does that work?
Director of Corporate Services, would you like to advise?
Certainly, given the new ownership, Councillor Solda, you would not need to excuse yourself.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Corbeil?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, I would just like to say, a big shout out to everybody involved in this particular building, from the developer to the folks that bought it. And it really just goes to show what could be done with a building, as we see in our pictures, what it used to look like and the nuisance it was. And I drive by it practically every day, and it's a beautiful building. So kudos to everybody involved. And I absolutely 100% believe it should no longer be a nuisance property.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, Councillor Corbeil, would you like to read the motion?
Yes, Madam Mayor. I move that council rescind the motion resolved at council's regular meeting held March 11th, 2019, declaring the property located at 2808 10th Avenue and legally described as Lot 10, Block 163, District Lot 1, Alberni District PLVIP 197B, the property, a nuisance property, thereby removing the subject property from the city's nuisance property listing.
I'll second that, Madam Mayor.
Moved and seconded. All in favor? Carried. Okay, thank you, Manager of Community Safety. We'll move back to our third item on 3629, 3633, and 3655 4th Avenue. And I understand we have Randy Brown back in the room. Mr. Brown, you're here to request council reconsider the remedial action. So we'll give you some time to speak to that.
I missed what you were saying there, but what are you guys up to today?
Sorry, could you repeat that?
Hello?
Yeah, Mr. Brown, we understand you're here to speak to us regarding your request for remedial action requirement reconsideration. So would you like to speak to this matter?
Sure. What do you guys want to know?
Are you asking for more time, or are you asking?
We're not finished everything on that list, but we're damn near finish most of it.
Manager of Community Safety, would you provide a bit more background on this?
We're not aware of any any of the work that has been done at this time. We haven't gone in to do an inspection, but we know that from viewing the property, we can see that a number of trailers are still there, and some bylaw and building zoning infractions are quite obvious still.
Mr. Brown, are you willing to accept taking on these remedial actions?
I've got an extreme hearing problem, and these meetings don't really look very good for me. I'm having trouble understanding what you guys are saying. And without being able to get those clues from reading everybody's lips, these mask things drive me nuts also. I get kind of like lost and confused, and I don't want to look like I'm, a little bit daft, but it's hard for me to follow what you guys are saying, especially without the video. But if you're asking about what's going on down there, basically we've been working on some of the things that you guys have listed there. There really isn't any major safety issue there. The electrical is being handled by an electrical permit for the trailers, and that work started today, and it should be finished, I'm guessing, maybe as early as Thursday.
Okay. Councillor Solda, do you have a comment?
I do, Mr. Brown, but the order is to remove the trailers. The trailers are not zoned in that area. It is not, and if you're not sure of that, the staff can clarify that. And nothing's been done, and it's not zoned, period.
I don't plan on removing the trailers. I have basically taken 18 people off the streets of Port Alberni, and I am housing them in these trailers. I've also got the other ones that were up at the little
Mr.
shelter that I
Brown, may
built.
I interrupt you for a moment? This is not a debate.
No.
This is really just for you to either accept the remedial action requirement or, we'd like to know if you accept these requirements and, if you need more time. Mr. Brown?
Well, what I'm trying to say is I don't really need any more time. I'm not removing them. So, and I think anybody who's got half a brain will agree with what I'm doing down there. This is an emergency situation. It's exactly the same as when your wife's pregnant and you got to get her to the hospital because you're going to have a kid. Do you buy
Mr. Brown, would it be appropriate if we gave you, say, another 7 days to meet the remedial requirements?
Pardon me?
How much more time do you need to meet the remedial requirements?
I don't know, as long as it takes council to agree with what I'm doing to come forward. I've already got a meeting. Why don't you just let me have a meeting with the mayor and we see where we go from there. How's that?
Okay, comments from councillors.
Let's adjourn this to your next council meeting and then we'll discuss it then.
Okay, Councillor Paulson, then Councillor Solda.
I'll try and be as diplomatic as I can, but the properties on 4th Avenue are a bit of a string of problems that we've had with this owner, with various properties in the community. I don't believe that Mr. Brown has a social worker's degree or a drug and alcohol counselor's degree. I would like to know if he has attempted to form any partnerships with the professional groups, whether it be federal bureaus or provincial bureaus. It looks to me like it's just running ad hoc, that there's income being derived with very little money being put back into the facilities. I drove down the alley on Sunday. One of the trailers, the door was wide open and the interior of the trailer was, I guess I'd like to ask is, do you offer cleaning services so that the people are not living what we consider in subhuman conditions? And that trailer with the door open certainly appeared that way to me. And if I might, Madam Mayor, while I'm chatting, I'd like to read the motion number 1. I'd like to move number 1, and then we could maybe discuss afterwards.
Sure, Councillor Paulson, go ahead with the motion.
I'd like to move the council pursuant to S78(4) of the Community Charter hereby confirms the remedial action requirement originally passed on November 23rd, 2020, and extends the time to owners to carry out the requirements by 14 days from the date that notice of this resolution made January 11th, 2021 is sent to the owners.
I want Claire, I'm not going to second it. No, wait.
Okay, do we have a seconder? Okay, seconded by Councillor Corbeil. Any discussion further to that? Councillor Solda?
So clarity, you're giving an extension on that motion, is that right? Am I understanding that right?
Yes, I think this is 14 days from the date of today.
I will not support that.
It's a standard extension on a request.
A motion I will not support.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, all in favor? Oh, sorry. Councillor Washington?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. How did this get back into our agenda then? And I assumed that Mr. Brown had asked for an extension.
Yes, Mr. Brown had asked for us to reconsider. Director of Corporate Services, can you shed some light on this?
Yes, certainly. Council will recall that at your November meeting, you first gave order, the remedial action order. Within that timeline, Mr. Brown is, or the property owners, are entitled to request that council reconsider the order. And in that order, it contained 18 requirements that needed to be addressed. The deadline, based on the November direction, was December 24th, which, as you know, fell during the holiday season. This is council's first regular meeting in 2021. And Mr. Brown did request that council give a reconsideration. So this is the first opportunity to do so.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Solda, you have a comment?
Yeah, just to clarify, I'm not supporting, is I have calls from owners of other homes around that area, and they're complaining about their safety, what they've witnessed, and other properties that Mr. Brown owns still need to be looked after. And I just find things are getting piecemeal, nothing's getting done. You can piece everything together. He is not in compliance in a lot of things, and I will not support this. And for this, and how the surrounding neighbors feel, I'm speaking on behalf of them too. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. May I just remind council that we are focusing on 3629, 3633, and 3655 4th Avenue, and we should remain on topic. Okay, Councillor Solda, sorry, Councillor Haggard, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We did give the Harborview Apartments an extension. I think we gave Port Pub an extension as well, but by Mr. Brown's conversation here today, has no intent of following the requirements that we set out. So I'd like to ask the Director of Corporate Services, what happens if we don't give him the extension? What further actions can the city take?
Director of Corporate Services.
Yes, thank you. So similar that council dealt with in the Harborview case, council returned to an in-camera meeting to consider next steps as it relates to property. So that would be council's next course of direction should the motion on the table fail.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Corbeil.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, I've got 2 points. One, I can understand where Councillor Sold is coming from. I think we do need the time so we can have places for these people to go when these trailers are moved out. We're working doubly hard on find something. And secondly, and I see we have the fire chief online, I'm wondering, does this building need a fire safety plan? And if it does, is there one? And I'll ask the fire chief to answer that question.
Okay, fire chief.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Unfortunately, I don't have in my possession the file for this building right now, so I'm not prepared to speak to it. The building should have a fire safety plan. I just don't know at what state that plan is currently in.
And my concern is there's been so many fires of late. You know, on New Year's Eve, there was a fire in Duncan that somebody lost their life. And Christmas Eve, there was a fire in Kelowna. In October, there was 2 people killed in Penticton, as well as a fire in Mission. And, you know, we now are aware that there could be some issues with this particular building. And, you know, even 14 more days is a little bit scary. And I would hope that, you know, we have some confidence that this building's not going to be on the news in the next little while.
Okay, I noticed the Director of Corporate Services had something to add.
Yes, thank you. Sorry, just to advise that the fire plan was a requirement, number 18, to prepare a fire safety plan in cooperation with the PA Fire Department.
Thank you. Thank you for adding that. Okay, Councillor Solda and then Councillor Paulson.
Regarding the fire plan, I mean, it's not just the building, it's the trailers. The fire truck has to get through all those trailers and that. There's a lot more to consider when we talk about the safety. The other thing is the people that are living in the trailers. I believe we mentioned in the last discussion when we made the motion originally about displaced people. If the trailers were moved and then all these people were displaced, that we would make sure that they were looked after. And tell me if I'm wrong on that. Pardon me. Who, CAO, or who wants to answer that? I mean, we did have that discussion about displacing and having housing for the people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, CAO, go ahead.
Madam Mayor, we did have that discussion. I would caution council that when we if we displace people through our actions, we can introduce them to housing. We can't compel them to take that housing up. So it's beyond our control to if people take up the housing that is offered or not. And we don't do that directly. We work with other agencies that are better able and professional at doing that.
Yes, we talked about that.
Thank you. Councillor Paulson?
I'm just looking at, the motion in the 14 days. I think that gives our staff an opportunity to have a look at the building and the requirements that were spelled out. I'd like to know how many, if any, of the requirements have been met, and it would give an opportunity for staff to bring a report to us at the end of this deadline. And after the 14th, maybe that's time to go into count in camera. But I think we need a little more input from our safety department, and that way we have something to work on.
Thank you. Manager of Community Safety, do you have anything to add?
I did. I just wanted to reiterate the requirement was to remove the trailers, and the fire plan it didn't involve the trailers.
Thank you. Okay, so we have a motion moved and seconded. Let's call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. And then the second motion, would anyone like to read that? Councillor Paulson, would you like to read the second motion?
Director of Community Services, is that a second motion or is that an optional motion?
No, the second motion is required. It's in order that we may provide formal notification to the property owners of the subject property.
Great, thanks. I'll move that council pursuant to S78.5 of the Community Charter hereby direct staff to provide notice that council has confirmed the remedial action requirement and extended the time for compliance to the owners and each holder of a registered charge in relation to the properties whose name is included on the assessment roll.
Second.
Comments? Okay, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, so we're ready to move on to our next item then. I'll call on Caitlin, Manager of Planning, on development permit number 20-07, 4006 Johnston Road.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. One second here. So before council for consideration today is a development permit at 4006 Johnson Road. This is the property at the corner of Johnson Road and Tebow Avenue, which is currently the Co-op gas station. Alberni District Co-op has applied for a development permit in order to renovate the existing convenience store. And this will include significant improvements to both the interior and the exterior of the building. This particular application is specific to the facade of the convenience store, but a second application is currently being reviewed by staff, and it proposes a broader redevelopment of the gas station site. But I just wanted to clarify that this permit is limited to the convenience store's facade. The property itself is zoned C4, highway commercial, and is included in the commercial development permit area in the OCP. The intent of the commercial development permit area guidelines is to ensure a high quality of development in highly visible areas of the city, especially where there may be an impact on the community's image. So staff have reviewed this application in terms of how it meets those design guidelines as well as the zoning bylaw requirements. In terms of the proposed design, the convenience store building is currently divided into 2 retail units, and the renovation will remove the retail unit at the back of the building and use that space to expand the interior of the convenience store, which will include an expanded retail area, new washrooms, an office, and a storage area, though the total floor area of the building will remain unchanged. The remaining storefront and exterior walls will be updated with a modern appearance and high quality materials. The new design also includes a raised parapet along the roof line, exterior lighting, and security cameras for safety, screening of all rooftop mechanical equipment, and the installation of a canopy along the front of the building to provide that weather protection for customers. The parking around this convenience store will remain unchanged aside from an additional loading space on the south side of the building. And this loading space is required by the zoning bylaw. No changes to the landscaping are proposed for this permit. However, landscaping of the broader gas station's site will be proposed in another permit currently under review. So to summarize, issuing this permit will enable Alberni District Co-op to proceed with the renovation of their convenience store at 4006 Johnson Road. And the applicant has worked with staff to ensure that their proposal meets all the applicable development permit area guidelines in the official community plan. The proposal also meets the requirements of the zoning bylaw, including the site development regulations for the C4 zone. Council's options include proceeding with issuance of the permit, not proceeding with issuance of the permit, and requesting further revisions from the applicant, or providing alternative direction to staff. The planning department supports the issuance of the development permit. Thank you.
Thanks very much for the report. We're very happy to see more investment in our community. Any comments from council? Councillor Solda?
On a happy note, I think it's going to look great and it'll probably match with all the other co-ops. And I think it's a great update. And Madam Mayor, I'll move that the City Council authorize the issuance of the development permit number 2007 and that the Director of Corporate Services be authorized to sign and permit, including the following development plans prepared by a dialogue design titled Alberni District Cooperative Association Convenience Store Renovation at Johnson Road, as shown on Schedule B attached to this permit and dated November 18th, 2020.
Second.
Second, Madam Mayor.
Moved and seconded. Any further comments? Councillor Washington?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd just like to echo Councillor Solda's joy of something high profile and looking so nice on our corridor road there. So hats off to Co-op for further investing in our valley. Thank you.
Excellent. Okay. Let's call the question. All in favor? Okay, carried. Thanks very much. Let's move on to our next item. Director of Finance for the 2021 and 22 property and liability insurance. Andrew, here for an update.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. So earlier in 2020, staff had brought a report to council to anticipate a decision for insurance services for the city of Alberni for both property and liability insurance. With the timing of our policy renewal, it's at a very difficult time for insurance underwriters to provide quotes, and we're still currently waiting for some information for an underwriter's cost for our liability insurance. So at this time, we don't have the quotes from Aon ready to go, but we are preparing based on the information that we have to have a decision from council on January 25th. Obviously, with the timing that we have for this, and then getting council approval for the decision to go ahead with either party for insurance coverages, we just wanted to give council a heads up on where we're at. anticipated decision that needs to be made on January 25th, which is quite a tight timeline to finish up everything by the end of the month. But we worked with both Aon and MIABC quite diligently over the last couple of months here, trying to get the quotes, and we should be able to finalize that at the end of the month. So,
Thank you, Director of Finance, for the update, and we're looking forward to seeing the quote in front of us next time. Any comments from Council? Councillor Washington?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. When the director says tight timelines, when does our existing insurance actually expire?
Great question, Madam Mayor. The expiry is at the end of the month, later that week. So it is quite tight, and it is a very difficult insurance market right now. It's a very hard market, and but you know it is what it is, and we're trying to get the best value for taxpayer dollars.
Thank you. Totally understand the situation we're in with insurance. It's definitely is a very difficult market. I noticed that when I renewed my insurance recently. Okay, Councillor Washington, would you like to make the motion?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move the council receive the report for information.
Seconded? Good. All in favor then? Carried. Thank you. Okay, now on to our next item. CAO, would you like to provide an update on 5109 Athol Street?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Council, you'll recall that at 5109 Athol Street, also known as the Arrowview Hotel, going back several years, the city was looking like the city was going to potentially have to pay to demolish that building, and at considerable cost to the taxpayers. We were fortunate in that a new owner took the building over and has substantially demolished the building. So the site currently sits with some demolition debris on site and a construction fence around the basement, essentially. This council has previously directed that the city take a bit of a hands-off approach to enable the owner to demolish the building, and we issued a demolition permit. When I say a hands-off approach, I mean that we didn't undertake the demolition ourselves. I'm not saying that we looked the other way or anything like that. When it comes to demolition, the city, in fact, doesn't have a lot of oversight other than issuing the permit and a street use permit. And a lot of the demolition activities are governed by other agencies such as Works APC. But that's an aside. So where we find ourselves today is still acting under council's previous direction, which was to enable the owner to complete the demolition on his own, using his funds. And it's been quite a lengthy time now since we've last heard from the owner. The site has not changed, at least since last June. It's not unsafe, but it's not. It's a bit of an eyesore, and the neighborhood has expressed concerns offline to you individually as council. So I wanted to check in with council and say, is that still the approach you want to take? And if so, we will. Or does council now want to take more of a proactive approach to the final phase of demolition there? And that would be cleaning up the rest of the debris, maybe putting more of a permanent fence around the excavation, or backfilling it, or in some way making it safer for the community. So if you're ready to give us direction now, great. If you're not, that's fine. We can talk about it when you're ready to. Just wanted to see if council knows what your direction, what your intended direction is for that property going forward.
Thank you, CAO. Questions from Councillor Solda?
Madam Mayor, I would like us to see us go forward. Summertime's coming. If the races happen, it's all going to be in that area. And I think we need to move forward. We've talked about let's clean it up. Let's clean up different areas of our city, and that's one area. So he could 3 months. I don't care how long as it's a certain. We give him this time and let him move forward on it. But I think we need to.
Thank you, Councillor Paulson.
I'm just wondering if we might entrust the CAO to kind of make a reach out, a phone call, a soft reach out, just to mention to the owner that he's still on our radar and maybe feel him out for what his future plan is. If there's nothing concrete comes out of that, I think then we could move on to a little harder line. But the spirit of cooperation has been pretty good, although it's been stagnant since last June. But I'm just wondering if the CAO just might be able to reach out and have a quick call and see where he's at.
CAO, would you like to comment?
I think that's one approach we could take, and it's not a bad one to see if we can re-engage. We haven't been successful engaging with the owner when we most recently tried to do that, but that was some time ago. So if that is council's will, we can reach out, try to engage with the owner, and then report back to you.
Well, that does sound like a low cost approach to being proactive. Councillor Corbeil, do you have a comment?
Well, I have no problem with the CEO reaching out to the individual. I mean, I want to thank the person who bought that property and tore the building down, and but it's been a long time, and I would think that if we were to give about a month to clean that up, if not, then the city will do it. That would be another approach. It's a weekend's worth of work, but what's left there looks absolutely horrible. But if the CAO can reach out and get back to us in a timely manner, I could live with that.
CAO, in terms of the costs associated with doing it, if the city had to do the work of cleaning it up, do you have a ballpark?
Madam Mayor, we don't today. I just wanted to check in with you today. If we reach out, if you direct that we reach out, and we do, and whatever response we get, I'll bring back to you. And at that time, we'll bring you an estimate of what we think the cost would be, what our cost would be to finish that demolition.
That sounds good. Councillor Solda, do you have a comment?
Okay, two. I will go along with the CAO reaching out. I have no problem, as long as it's back at the next meeting. And the other one is regarding the costs. We do have money put away when we thought we would have to take down the building. So there is money there, but I will go along with the idea that the CAO reaches out. I'll do that. Thank you.
Is that a motion, Councillor Solda?
Yes, and that the CAO also brings it back at the reports back at the next council meeting.
Director of Corporate Services, did you get that?
Yes, Acting Mayor Poon, thank you.
Okay. Councillor Washington, you have a comment?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. If we went ahead and did the cleanup on the property, would that invoice or that bill, wouldn't that go towards his taxes, CAO?
Madam Mayor, I don't know for sure if we could do that. That would be our intention, that if we were to incur costs, that we would undertake a process first, so that if we did at the end of that have to do the work ourselves, that we would have the best opportunity to put the cost on the property owner. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I missed. Did we have a seconder for that motion? Okay. Moved and seconded then. Any further comments? Okay, we'll call the question. All in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, CAO. We'll move on to bylaws. Manager of Planning on Rainbow Gardens Housing Agreement.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. Before you today for consideration is a draft housing agreement proposed by the West Coast Native Healthcare Society, which is located at 6151 Russell Place. The Society is developing a 5-story, 48-unit seniors rental housing project at 6123 Russell Place with the intent to provide affordable housing to seniors. All of the units will be rented at lower than market rates, and of those units, 50% will be provided at deeply subsidized rates. The city has a development cost charge reduction bylaw, which is bylaw number 4947, and that enables the city to reduce payable development cost charges by 50%. for eligible developments that meet specific affordable housing criteria. Now, in order for a proposed development to be eligible for that 50% DCC reduction, the City of Port Alberni and the society providing the housing, in this case, the West Coast Native Housing Society, would be required to enter into a housing agreement. So really then the purpose of the housing agreement is twofold in that it secures affordable rental units within the proposed development, and it enables that development to qualify for a reduction of payable DCCs. For this project, full DCCs have been calculated at approximately $229,292.12. And so a 50% reduction would bring the DCCs down to $114,646.56. The developer has also requested that council consider waiving all building permit fees associated with this development application, which would be approximately $25,842. Now, currently, in lieu of any policy with regards to waiving building permit fees, these requests are just considered by council on a case-by-case basis. Thank you.
Thank you. I see that the developers are on hand to answer questions. Any comments from developers?
I'll wait.
Okay.
Thanks for the opportunity to speak. I'll be brief. Good afternoon. I'm the project manager for the Rainbow Gardens Seniors Housing Project at Russell Place. Now in the final design stages. Dariusz Ferosley, the project architect, is also available, I believe, to answer any questions on design of the project. A special thank you to staff for getting this matter on the council agenda so promptly. That's really appreciated. As they say in the development business, time is money. Caitlin has gone over the various income groups that will be housed in the project. I've reviewed the housing agreement bylaw, including Schedule A, and I find it to be exactly as I discussed with staff. Naturally, I'm disappointed there's no recommendation to waive all building permit fees. However, the 50% reduction in DCCs at about $115,000 is a significant contribution. And on behalf of the group, I thank you for that. The city's contribution will reduce the capital costs of the project. This in turn will reduce the mortgage payments after the project's completed, and in this way will benefit the West Coast Native Healthcare Society. If there's any other questions on the project, I'd be pleased to answer them. And I'm sure if there's any design questions, Dariusz is standing right beside me somewhere in virtual space, waiting to answer them.
Thanks very much.
You're welcome.
Council, any comments? Yes, Councillor Paulson, please.
Just a quick question to the developer as we move through this process of approvals and stuff. Once you receive approvals, I'm excited about this project because I could be a tenant someday. But anyway, I was just wondering if there's a kind of a building timeline start to finish?
Yes.
John?
They always ask me that. And it's always a bit of a guess. But we recently reviewed the schedule, and we think we'll be in for a building permit to the city within at least a month. And we hope to have a final project approval submission to BC Housing by March the 8th. And hopefully by the end of March, I think it's the BC Housing XCOM meeting of March 24th, we'll hopefully get final project approval. And in the meantime, we hope the city's issued the building permit, and IWCD, our contractor, Island West Coast Development Limited, will be mobilizing on the site in the meantime, and we hope to start construction sometime in April. And we believe, because it's quite a complicated project, probably take about 14 months to complete. So sometime in 2022, I'd say around the summer, June or July, we should be finished and ready for occupancy. And we'd be glad to accept your application.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're
Councillor Solda, did you have a comment?
Just a couple of questions regarding DCCs. So a recommendation of half of DCCs, but then I read that they would opt to forego the DCCs to have the building fees, the whole of the building fees. Is there a difference? No,
I'm just going to say, Councillor, that there's two separate things there. I think the first item we definitely need, and that is the 50% reduction in development cost charges. That's the major contribution for us. Now, with regards RG20, the previous seniors housing project that we did on lot 2, I believe we got both, but then the figures were significantly less because there were only 20 units in that project, 48 in this. It was the new project's about double the cost, and I think the total contribution for the 20 unit project was a $50,000 reduction in DCCs and about a $12,000 reduction in all the building permits, for a total reduction of about 62,000. So with this project at almost twice the cost, we've gotten almost twice the benefit. We'd like to get the building permit fees waived, but we get the feeling maybe it's an awful lot of money for the municipality at this present time, and so we're willing to accept whatever you feel you can afford to give us.
Okay, so Madam Mayor,
Yes.
unfortunately, they haven't, Rainbow Gardens, the board has not had a meeting for a long, since COVID, basically, except for an AGM. Obviously, there's reasons, as everybody can understand. And I believe there's a waiting list to get into all these apartments, I believe. Isn't that correct? Because I've forwarded names and people have told me there's a waiting list, a big waiting list.
I think they've got a waiting list now that would fill all extra 48 units.
Mm-hmm. And I know there's a lot of seniors who are living couch surfing, and we have in the past discussed this, or I have voiced it at council meetings. They are just waiting because one person actually had online, hey, I only get this much money and I can't find a place in Port Alberni. And I think this is a positive thing for a law. I believe it's a positive for our seniors and companions, because this is, I believe, isn't the building also not just the room, like a senior can live in there, but a senior who needs help, they can have their someone live with them too and help them through, like a family member to help them. Isn't there some apartments like that?
There's really no provision for that, except there are two bedroom units.
Yes.
And one could be a caregiver.
Mm-hmm. There was discussion at a board level. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I go to Councillor Paulson, I'd like to invite Manager of Planning in. I just wondered, with regards to the permit fees, would it be consistent with our past practice to waive the permit fees?
Yes, excellent question. Thank you for that, Madam Mayor. So in terms of past practice, I think it depends how far into the past you look. I've been with the city for just 2 years now, and in my time with the city, when we have had the request to waive building permit fees, we have not gone down that road, but I do understand that in the past, specifically with this project, we have previously waived development, any sort of building permit fees. And so really the recommendation from my perspective is just that in lieu of any policy, we don't really have a consistent approach, which is why we haven't, from a staff perspective, supported this, but certainly, you know, open to the will of council.
Thank you. And CAO, would you like to comment?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I see some councillors I wanted to make comment as well. And to echo the comments of the manager of planning, the city several years ago adopted the current policy regarding 50% DCCs for eligible projects. And in that discussion, council wanted to get away from being petitioned on a project by project basis, which is really hard for council to say no to really welcome good projects like this. And so the policy was adopted of 50% DCCs. And the discussion at the time was that council going forward would not be waiving permit fees. Now, I believe we may have waived the permit fee in question for this previous project after that policy. And so it's always, you know, within council's purview to make decisions in the moment. So you're not bound not to approve this, but I can tell you that discussion had been that you intended to go forward not waiving permit fees. I'd also point out that that the city just announced last week the creation of a new development services position, and it's our intention that increased fees and charges will help offset part of the cost of that. So certainly a building permit fee here would contribute to that position.
Thanks for your comments, CAO. Comments from councillors? Councillor Paulson.
I just wanted to reiterate the CAO's comments that at the time, and I think it was right near the end of the last term of council, we were receiving a number of requests on this front. So there was a policy developed, and I don't recall the timing. I don't remember if it was before or after the last edition at Rainbow Gardens, but there is a policy in place from my understanding. I couldn't tell you the details offhand, but the policy really dealt with, we think that DCCs are fair, development permits and building permits probably are off limits, but I could be wrong there.
Thank you. It seems to me that, you know, if there's a policy, then we should follow the policy. Otherwise, why do we have a policy? Councillor Haggard?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was just going to say it's very difficult to do one-offs because we have so many wonderful projects, you know, in the works right now. And I feel if we say yes to one, then we have to say yes to all. It isn't fair to say yes to one wonderful project, but say no to another wonderful, very worthwhile project. So I feel that we have to stick to our policy and not waive building permit fees, no matter how good the project is. Thank you.
Thank you. I think Councillor Solda had a further comment.
And we're not 100% about policy, but we'll go with that because we think. So anyways, where I'm going with that, on the DCCs, what is our normal norm for waiving DCCs? It's 50%, just to clarify.
That's correct, yep.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, no further discussion. Oh, Councillor Paulson.
Not discussion, I'm just going to make the motion.
Thank you, go ahead.
Okay, I'd like to move the housing agreement 6151 Russell Place, Rainbow Gardens, bylaw number 5021 be now introduced and read a first time.
Second.
Question.
Oh, question from Councillor Solda?
I'm just making sure in this motion, all these motions coming up, that the 50% is in there. I see at least 50%, but I'm just Yes, okay, so there is a reduction. Okay, that's fine.
Yes, that's right.
Okay, thank you.
Call the question. All in favor? Carried.
I'd like to move that housing agreement 6151 Russell Place, Rainbow Gardens, bylaw number 5021 be read a second time.
Second.
Comments? All in favor? Carried.
I'd like to move that housing agreement 6151 Russell Place, Rainbow Gardens, bylaw number 5021 be read a third time.
Second.
All in favor? Carried. Okay, I'd like to thank the developer and architect for joining us today, and thank you, Manager of Planning. Let's move on to correspondence for action. Director of Corporate Services.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Poon. So one piece of correspondence for action, that from Softball British Columbia, where they're seeking financial support for softball athletes from across BC who will be representing BC at the Canada Summer Games in 2022. And there is a motion on the agenda for Council's consideration.
Thank you. Any comments from Council? Councillor Solda?
Madam Mayor, much that I'd like to do things like that, we have our own issues in our own community. So at this moment, I'm sure that government's going to come in with grants and stuff for however they do that. And so I'm just doing a motion to receive.
I think the motion proposed is to receive and for it to be sent to the Community Investment Program for consideration.
Then
Doesn't
that's
mean that
fine.
we're
I'll
giving them
move,
anything.
I'll move that motion then, Madam Mayor.
All right, thank you. Seconder? Thank you, Councillor Paulson. Any further comments? All in favor? Carried, thank you. Okay, we'll go to our next item, proclamations. No proclamations. Item J, correspondence for information. Director of Corporate Services, would you like to give us a summary?
Thank you again, Acting Mayor Poon. So I'll just quickly, this is a bit of a change from what Council is typically used to when we're listing correspondence for information. It has been summarized in table format. The letters in their entirety are included in the package, and I will go through and summarize each here for you. But just to clarify that any correspondence that the city may receive that is not relevant to city services and responsibilities, and that it pertains to personal matters, legal action, or items of a confidential nature will not be included in the summary. And I will just go ahead and outline the correspondence received now. So we have 12 items, one being the first one is actually a letter from Mayor Minions that was sent to a letter of support for a housing project, 33 units, and that's attached for Council's general information. We have a letter from VIRL, which is speaking to the upcoming retirement of their executive director, Rosemary Bonanno. We have correspondence from Aaron Breivik regarding pedestrian safety and requesting upgrades to high-risk crosswalks within the city. Correspondence from the Alberni Valley Chamber of Commerce thanking the A1 Alberni Inn for assisting Island Health with accommodations for community members required to isolate during COVID-19. We have correspondence from our new MLA, Josie Osborne, and Minister of Municipal Affairs. In that correspondence, MLA Osborne is outlining roles and responsibilities of each. We have correspondence from the City of Kamloops calling on federal government for an overdose action plan and requesting other municipalities to submit similar resolutions. A letter from Girl Guides of Canada looking for light up of facilities in the color blue on February 22nd to celebrate World Thinking Day. We have correspondence from Jerry Waleris, and it's with regards to continuing support for McLean Mill. We have correspondence from our sister city in Japan, and in it, they're recognizing the 30th anniversary of the twinning of sister cities and expressing wishes to meet again once our COVID-19 pandemic is over. We have additional correspondence from Mr. Randy Fraser in follow-up to an email he has sent to council in your December 14th regular meeting package. And it is speaking to, again, the Aquatic Center and the other projects on the part of the city. We have correspondence from Uptown Merchants, and they're just expressing their concerns with regards to a building in the 2900 block of 3rd Avenue. And correspondence from the Alberni Valley Chamber of Commerce, and it's expressing support for the actions taken on the part of the city to address the building on 3rd Avenue and the same building that the Uptown Merchants are referring to. And that summarizes the correspondence for council.
Thank you. Any comments from council? Okay, Councillor Corbeil.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to mention two of the letters that we received. One from Mr. Breverick talking about crosswalks, and particularly talks about the one down on 3rd Avenue, 3rd and I guess it's Butte. And I happened to be at a meeting in that building just a week ago, and I looked out the window and watched somebody cross that crosswalk. And it's, it's about 400 yards across. Like it's typical of some of our main roads. It's an extremely wide crossing. And it looks to me like we should have bump outs or potentially something in the middle of the road. But to the bigger question that Aaron talks about, there should be possibly some sort of subcommittee or something that looks at these things. When the weather's horrible like it has been, I'm afraid to drive at night. Every crosswalk scares the heck out of me because I'm worried that somebody's going to step out in front of my vehicle. So, it truly is, it's a big issue. And I know Aaron talks about different ways to fund it. And I don't know if that makes sense, but I sure would like to look into some of these situations in more detail. The other point, Mr. Fraser wrote again about the swimming pool, and we now know that at the end of 2019, the regional district was going to put together a feasibility study, which we should have seen in 2020. And I don't know if that started or where that's at. There was supposed to be discussion with the community, and I'd just like an update on, is there anything, does anybody know if anything is happening with this feasibility study for a new aquatic center? Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your concerns. Councillor Haggard.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was just going to respond to Mr. Fraser's letter as well. The ACRD has been operating the Emergency Operations Center for the last 10 months in response to COVID-19 and a worldwide pandemic. So unfortunately, the Aquatic Center, as understandably so, has not been the top of their priority list. However, they just approved a strategic plan, and it is in there. And if you read the agenda for the next meeting, it is one of their first priorities that they're going to deal with. They have them blocked into A, B, C, and D, and that is the new aquatic center is listed on number A. So I'm guessing that we will see action coming up this year. Secondly, in regard to Mr. Fraser's letter, I just want to say that, yes, I think the ACRD is very capable of leading this initiative, and they also have very capable staff that can do the work. I just want to ask a question, though. He talked about the route from the Key to Key project, and as far as I know, the projected route has not been released to the public. So I'm wondering, the CEO, is this just conjecture on his part, or does he have privy to information that the public isn't privy to yet?
CEO.
Madam Mayor, Councillor Haggard is correct. There is not an identified route for the Connect the Keys pathway. As you know, we made an application in September, I believe, for grant funding for this. So in order to be in the game for grant funding, we had to identify a route, and we identified for the grant a route that we had possession of or legal access to. And since that time, we've been working with property owners to improve that route or to create options that could improve that route. And our goal is that our timeline, we think, will be March. And I'm cautious that when I say I think, that alarms some people. We don't know this for sure. Our goal is that in March, that council will be engaging with the community to say, look, we've developed several routes through each various parts of that corridor, and we'll take public input on those specific route options. And the public can tell us which routes they see, which route or routes they see as the ideal, and what the makeup of the pathway would be, and those sorts of things. So because we made a grant application before the pathway was designed, we had to do it this way. So we don't have all the answers. We made an application for funding. That's going to really move us forward. But the public engagement is still to come. We're not able to engage the public on route options until we engage the property owners first. So this is why these things have to go in this order.
Thank you for the clarification, CEO. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Councillor Washington.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I agree with Councillor Corbeil on Mr. Brevic's letter. I too, it gets very dark out there, and it seems the favorite color is black. So for our pedestrians, but I'm thinking of the lighted crosswalk by the Thai Village Motel in Redford. If we had some idea of the cost, or can we figure out what something like that would cost, and then perhaps there are people out there that would sponsor a crosswalk. I know there's people in the past who sponsored trees and benches in memory of loved ones. So let's toss it out there. I'd rather see a crosswalk than, with no disrespect, I'd rather get a crosswalk like Laurent says on 3rd Avenue and probably on by the dip on 10th. Thank you.
CAO, would you like to comment on crosswalks?
Madam Mayor, I'm not the best one to comment on that. The Director of Engineering is on this call. He might want to provide comment, and we also might want to refer these to Advisory Traffic Committee for input.
Director of Engineering, would you like to comment?
New to this conversation here, all I'd like to say is cost-wise, it really depends on the location and the access to power. But generally, you're looking at about $75,000 for a PED flasher, activated PED flasher, assuming there's already a crosswalk in that location.
Thank you. Appreciate your comment. Councillor Paulson.
Thank you. Two things. The letter from Mr. Breivik, I would suggest that we refer that to the Advisory Traffic Committee. And on that committee, you have representatives from ICBC and other organizations. And quite often, depending on ICBC stats and stuff, they will kick into the costs of doing things like this. But there's a bit of homework to do. And I think that's a good committee to have go through that letter. The second thought I have is with regards to Mr. Fraser's letter. And I'm just sitting here thinking abstractly, and we're putting together a bid for the 2026 summer game, BC Summer Games. Wouldn't it be wonderful if in 2025 or 2026, we open a brand new aquatic center to support that event, if we get that event. So I'm just being glass half full.
Thank you. Councillor Solda, you have a comment?
I do. I agree with you, Councillor Coulson, on a new pool, totally, because it's been in discussion for years and the price keeps going up. So regarding Mr. Beveridge, regarding audible signals, I know in the past we have, when we redo a light, we put in an audible signal in that, and I agree that, and I'll make a motion that we take this letter and send it to the Traffic Advisory Committee for input.
I'll second that. Any comments on the motion? Councillor Paulson? No? Oh, okay. All in favor?
And if I may carry on here, regarding Mr. Fraser's letter, in the past regarding routes and stuff like that, Mr. Fraser's worked for the city for many, many years, and he knows all past discussions about having pathways and everything. So it's not something someone told him or anything. He's been in discussions. So I just wanted to bring that forward. And I would like to go to number 6, which is the City of Kamloops letter, the copy of a resolution that they sent. Have we ever sent a letter, maybe one of our staff or CAO might know, regarding the overdose action plan? We know that's really big in the communities, and I know the government recognizes that. So I have no problem sending a letter, but maybe somebody could staff could give me input on that.
CAO, would you like to comment?
Madam Mayor, I'm not able to answer that question right now. I can report back at a future meeting, unless the Director of Corporate Services knows.
Okay, if that could happen, I would love to have that, Madam Mayor. And now number 7, Girl Guides of Canada. They're asking that we all participate in lighting up our facilities blue. I don't want to go around changing light bulbs to blue, but is there another way we can support this, or recommendation from staff?
CAO.
Madam Mayor, if council wishes to take part in this, we can refer it to the Director of Parks, Rec and Heritage and for her staff to look into.
Do we need a motion on that, or is that just come back to us?
Madam Mayor, given the workload that our staff are working through right now, a motion is preferable.
Madam Mayor, I'll move that we have our Directors of Parks and Rec look into this and come back with a report.
Do we have a seconder?
No, okay.
No seconder, motion defeated.
Okay, number 10. I've already talked about number 10. Okay, that's and number 11 regarding the Uptown Merchants, which ties into number 12 too. Could the CAO give a report what's happening? I know that most people know and they've read it in the newspaper, but let's give a verbal report from the city. And there has been a press release from the city, but not everybody has internet.
Madam Mayor, I think the Director of Corporate Services is better positioned to speak to that.
Okay, Director of Corporate Services.
Great. Thank you, Acting Mayor Poon. I will do my best. I do not have the releases in front of me as a refresher, but the building remains on a do not occupy. That was an order on the part of the fire chief due to the unsafe condition. And the city, that's as it relates to the 3rd Avenue. Is there anything more specific, Councillor Solda, that you were looking for?
No, I just wanted the public to hear what's an update from the public to the public. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Thank you. So I'll move that we receive the correspondence summary. Seconded. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. And there's next item, no report from in camera. So we'll move on to council reports. Council, anyone would like to highlight items from their report? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to receive. Move, seconded. All in favor? Carried. Any items of new business? Okay, moving on. We'll move on to question period. Director of Corporate Services.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Poon. No submissions have been received, but I'd like to take this opportunity, and perhaps I should have touched on it when we were speaking about the exclusion application. Just want to bring to the attention that Mr. Adams had submitted questions for response at a future meeting regarding the cleanup that was being conducted on 2 properties adjacent to the McLean Mill. So we will bring that information back to the next regular meeting of council. And also, I'll just perhaps take this opportunity then to acknowledge correspondence that the city will be providing to Mr. Smith, who had also had specific questions on the part of council, and that related to the city's debt and estimated servicing costs. And he can anticipate that correspondence shortly.
Thank you for following up on that correspondence. All right, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn then. Moved, seconded, all in favor? Carried.